spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers. Ah, spring, when young men's thoughts turn to horrible, nasty, dirty things! I mean, welcome to another episode in our series, Isn't It Romantic? This is Max Mike Movies, that show that, up till now, and, well, likely for a good long time to come, involves two guys, Max and Mike, talking about movies. And, that's what we're doing today. And I totally didn't have trouble thinking up something to write for the opening. That's Max's job, to have trouble thinking, I mean. Did I mean that?
Yeah? Well, you're...
Exactly.
Ow, ow, ow. It hurts.
Yeah, right.
I'm back.
So, am I actually writing this right now or just saying it? Hell, I'm not even sure. But that's what can happen with live TV. Right, the film. When Harry Met Sally is today's subject, and we will be scrutinizing and trivializing it in that little way that we have. And who is we? Why, we is the master of corned beef on rye, Mustard Max Levine.
Yo.
And I am the sandwich press of flavor, masticating Mike Luce. You might think this movie has a lot...
What, Mike Luce?
Masticating.
Okay. Didn't sound like that's what you said, but okay.
Yes, masticating. It means to chew.
Stop saying it. It sounds dirty when you say
Masticate!
Ah!
You know, I love to masticate while looking at the internet.
God!
You know, you might think this movie has a lot to do with delis or even lunch. Well, it doesn't. I'm just hungry. Hungry for trivia, that is. Help me.
Well, let's have us a big heapin' helping.
Right, so. The show. Budget. $16 million. That's actually a pretty modest amount.
Yeah, for 1989.
I mean, you already know if the film was successful or not, but just take a guess at what its pull was. Remember, we're aiming for that sweet spot. Let's see, back in the 80s, it was still probably double to triple. So,
yeah, let's say 60 million.
Let's say 93.
Whoa! Dang!
Now, as far as I could tell, that was domestic. So the worldwide might have been better. I just couldn't find any numbers for anything but domestic. So that was reasonably successful.
Yeah, pretty good.
So the director, Rob Reiner, he
Meathead!
was... Yes. Poor guy.
I'm sorry, Mr. Reiner. We love you, but... Meathead!
Sure.
God, of course, most people don't even know what that means anymore, and I bet he's really happy about that.
We're getting to it. He was best known for playing Michael
Meathead!
Stivic.
Sorry. I like saying meathead.
I noticed. And I think all of our listeners...
over here, you crazy meathead. What are you doing?
Yeah.
My flawless Carol O'Connor impression. Flawless!
We're never getting this done.
Nope.
Rob Reiner was best known for playing Michael Stivic, don't say it, who was the son-in-law of Archie Bunker on All in the Family. Stop pursing your lips.
Meathead.
He was once also married to Penny Marshall, the Laverne of Laverne and Shirley fame, amongst many other things she did. But they divorced after 10 years. This movie is actually the result of the feelings of depression and loneliness that came from that divorce. While seen as a somewhat goofy character himself, he would go on to direct quite a slew of pretty high-profile films, including The Princess Bride, Misery, Stand By Me, This Is Spinal Tap, The Bucket List, and A Few Good Men. He would do this through his production company, Castle Rock Films. You may have heard of some of those films.
One or two.
Yeah. Nora Ephron, the screenwriter, is known for movies such as this one, Sleepless in Seattle, Silkwood, and Julie and Julia. She was at one point married to journalist Carl Bernstein, one of the writers who uncovered the Watergate scandal. Early on, she was also one of the very few people who knew the identity of Deep Throat. When she divorced from Bernstein, she made it a point to tell anyone who asked who that was.
Oh, dear.
Which was, in fact, for those who don't know, because I actually didn't, was Mark Felt. He was the the ex-associate director of the FBI. Apparently, at one point, she was in front of a 500 group talk, and somebody just said, "Do you know who Deep Throat was?" And she said, "Yeah, it was Mark Felt." Next. She didn't care. And apparently the thing was people didn't believe her.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, everyone had much more dramatic ideas of who Deep Throat was, and having it be the assistant director of the FBI just that wasn't dramatic enough. They wanted it to be like Spiro Agnew or
Robert Redford or Dustin Hoffman. She was also a journalist, and she worked as an intern at the White House during the Kennedy era. Then she applied to work for Newsweek. When she found out that they didn't hire women writers, she actually took an internship in the mailroom and then successfully sued them to change that practice. She would go on to write for the New York Post and Esquire, among others. Interestingly, Meryl Streep would show up in 3 of her films, including Silkwood, Heartburn, which was a movie adaptation of a novel about her own life, and Julie and Julia. So, much of the relationship between Harry and Sally was actually based on a different friendship. Do you know who that friendship was between?
Yeah, it was Rob Reiner and Nora Ephron.
No, it was Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So the scene where they're shown watching the same movie, in this case Casablanca, while talking to each other over the phone is apparently something that Billy and Rob would do sometimes on a nightly basis.
Oh.
Yeah.
And what about when they had sex?
That didn't happen.
Oh.
Probably.
They'd be so cute together. I mean, Rob Reiner's like 1.5 feet taller, but sure.
That sounds like you're describing why the chiropractor played the Dracula character in Plan 9 from Outer Space, but whatever. The intercut scenes of the older couples on a couch when they're speaking about how they met and how long they were married, that was actually based on real interviews conducted with production staff about their marriages. The material was rewritten and actors were brought in to play the parts.
Nice.
Ephron... Oh, go ahead.
No, that's just nice. I like those little stories, although it's a strange gimmick for the movie, but we'll talk about that.
Yep. Ephron based Sally. Do you know who she based it on?
I thought she based it partly on herself.
Yes, she did. Reiner especially liked the way that Nora Ephron ordered food and made sure that it was used in the script.
Oh, God, she does the same thing that Meg Ryan's character does?
Yes, and apparently the line, "I just like things the way I like them," was something that Nora Ephron was known for saying when questioned, "Why are you doing these horrible, crazy things?" And that was her response. So Reiner was like, well, that's going in the script. So it did.
Fair enough.
The original ending, and of course we will speak about the ending later on, but the original ending, one agreed upon by both Rob Reiner and Nora Ephron, left Harry and Sally as friends, not getting married, as this felt more real, sincere, and so on and so forth. But Reiner, who, again, was partially doing this film because of the depression after having divorced Penny Marshall, met his soon-to-be wife on the making of this film. They got married, and so he changed the ending because now that felt more right.
Huh. Well, all right.
So, according to the stars, when asked if they thought men and women could be, quote, just friends, end quote, their answers were very similar to their characters. Meg Ryan replied, yes, men and women can be just friends. I have a lot of platonic male friends and sex doesn't get in the way, end quote. Crystal, on the other hand, said, I'm a little more optimistic than Harry, but I think it's difficult. Men basically act like stray dogs in front of a supermarket. I do have platonic women friends, but not best friends, end quote. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Nobody asked, but I think if I were to take one side or the other, I would be leaning towards Billy Crystal / Harry's side.
Huh.
But there you go.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. The most famous scene in the movie, pretty much if you know any scene in the movie, you know this scene, the scene in the diner where Sally performs a fake orgasm. It came about when Billy Crystal noted that the movie was focusing a little bit too much on his character. Ephron suggested the subject, but it was Meg Ryan who offered, well, why don't I just do it in a restaurant? The woman who delivers the line, and this is like the best-known piece of trivia ever, who delivers the line, I'll have what she's having, was, of course, Rob Reiner's mother, Estelle. And the line itself was again suggested by Billy Crystal.
That's a real diner, by the way. The place that's Katz's Diner in New York.
Yep, and they still have a little sign over the table saying, where Harry met Sally, I hope you had what she's having, or she had. And we do this occasionally. Originally considered for the part of Sally were such actors, and this one I would not have seen coming from any direction. Susan Day.
Oh, boy.
Best known as Laurie on The Partridge Family.
Well, also as Gracie in L.A. Law.
Yes. And she was also in some dreadful futuristic film that was, And Molly Ringwald.
Oh, wow. Would that not have worked?
No. Especially not with Billy Crystal. Just not, yeah. On the list of people to play Harry were such actors as Michael Keaton and Tom Hanks. Yeah. To be fair,
Wow,
there were others.
okay.
Apparently Harrison Ford was in there too, and I'm like, kind of, okay.
All right.
Especially if you had Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher in the same
That would have
film.
been too good, really.
Yeah.
Also really awkward, given their history.
Tom Hanks apparently considered the part too light for his taste, so he didn't want to do it.
So you want to do something serious, like Big. Okay, sure.
Yeah, or, you've got...
Bases and Monsters.
Yeah, that was far earlier, so
Yeah.
The scene where Harry and Sally independently call their friends after their night of sex took 61 takes to get right. For whatever reason, it was filmed simultaneously on 3 sets and had to be timed perfectly. Apparently, they got it just right on take 54. They all hung up their phones right when they were supposed to, and then Bruno Kirby screwed up his line. And sadly, that was the last anybody ever saw of Bruno Kirby because he was killed. No. This is the first movie soundtrack work for a little gentleman called Harry Connick Jr., who would, I think, be very instrumental in a weird, short-lived resurgence of big band music in the late 80s, early 90s. It just was suddenly a thing.
Yeah, also that sort of Frank Sinatra crooner-style piano-playing music.
Yep. And he does have a very velvety voice. It's a very pretty voice. But yeah, so this is where he sort of gets his start in movies. That final scene with Harry and Sally on that couch was entirely improvised.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of trivia. Do you have any else you want to throw in there?
No, not really. I think you covered everything.
Yeah, you know what I didn't cover?
What?
The plot.
Oh, right, the plot.
Nah, I didn't write it either.
Oh, come on, boy meets girl, boy. We know the plot.
So there's Harry.
They don't like each other at first. They like each other as friends. They end up together. Boom. There's the plot.
I mean, yes, but
I'm drunk. I'm no one. I'm drunk. I'm famous. I'm drunk. I'm dead. There.
Yeah, if you have not seen Harry Met Sally, its plot is, quite honestly, the plot is very thin. It's literally 2 people meet that do not get along. The people around them are getting married and then later breaking up and then getting married again, potentially. They are getting married and then getting divorced or not having relationships. All the while they become friends until finally, boo. There. I do apologize. Usually I actually write out a plot and I'm sitting here looking at my trivia because it was so thick and long and I'm like, Well,
that's it. I'm cutting your salary in half.
Yeah, well, I'll just get Bumpy to do it next week. So, so
I'm
that's
cutting Bumpy in half, too.
Get him, Bumpy. Leave him a present on his doorstep, Bumpy. Right.
I'll leave him as a present on some dog food company's doorstep.
The lowdown. So, the question that we usually gets asked at some point sooner or later. Max, did you see it when it came out?
I did. I saw it in the theater.
You really going to make me ask the question?
Yes.
And did you like it when it came out?
I did. I thought it was fun. Okay. I thought it was funny. I thought... I didn't know Billy Crystal that much back then.
Well, so now
I knew him mostly from Saturday Night Live.
I can't remember. Was he actually part of the cast?
Yeah, he was for a while. That's where he came up with, he would do his Fernando Lamas character.
Oh, you look marvelous.
Exactly.
That was terrible, but yeah.
He did a good job, I think. I actually don't think I ever saw Fernando Lamas, so...
No.
I don't know.
It's so hard because it's like Billy Crystal is so successful and Saturday Night Live sort of isn't, so...
Hey, Saturday Night Live has been on the air for over 40 years. I think that's pretty successful.
Only because they literally cannot think of anything else that they'd rather put in its place.
Yeah, really. What else are you going to show at 11:30 on a Saturday night? Now, believe me, I could talk about Saturday Night Live for an entire episode, but
yeah, I know.
Because of the two of us, I'm the only one who watched it from the beginning, and because I hate life, still watch it.
I mean, I don't think I've watched an entire episode since the 80s, and then it would have been the early 80s. Because, there's good reasons for that. Yeah. And, some brilliant things did come out. Obviously, Billy Crystal seems to have made a career that, people might have heard of.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, that Crystal kid does seem to have made something of himself.
Yeah. He is potentially at his most Billy Crystal in this film. I mean, he's really Billy Crystal in this film.
You know, it's an interesting thing. One of our listeners and a contributor by writing, Herr Halbwitz.
Oh yes, Herr Halbwitz. Yes.
He was watching, or at least listening to the movie with me, and he pointed out something, and I didn't notice this, but once he had mentioned it, I checked, and he's right. Meg Ryan, as her character ages. I mean, these two people are together for like 12 years.
Right.
When we first see them, they're just fresh out of college in the University of Chicago in 1977, and she talks like a girl in that. She talks like a kid. Mm-hmm. And when we see her 6 years later, her mannerisms have changed. Her voice changes. And as her character changes, she changes the way she talks, the way she carries herself. Billy Crystal never does. He plays himself exactly the same from beginning to end. And I think he's absolutely right about this. And I have to say, I think this is because Meg Ryan is a better actor. Billy Crystal is funnier. He is a brilliant comedian, and he is a brilliant comic actor. He's not a great actor.
I don't know that I disagree. The only other note I had in here was that this may be Meg Ryan at her most Meg Ryan.
Oh, she is very Ryan-esque here. This is as Meg Ryan-ish as she gets.
And as soon as she did that smile where she like tightly closes her eyes and shows you her gums, like I've seen other people do impressions of Meg Ryan, and they pretty much start with that, and that kind of is all you need to do. Meg Ryan, I'm trying to remember her in other films, because my feeling with Meg Ryan is you kind of don't get a lot of breadth.
I don't know. She did a whole bunch of romance movies, not rom-coms and just romance in the 80s and 90s. And is in some ways, as one of our later movies will show, credited with almost killing the genre. Although I really don't think that was her.
No. And don't get me wrong, I don't think she's bad at all.
No, she's terrific.
The observances that Herr Habwitz is making may also be magnified because he couldn't see her. So he's hearing some things that we might not notice because we're looking. And that's a really cool observation. I certainly didn't get it. But I don't know that I would consider, like you said, I don't know if I would consider Crystal an actor more than I would a comedic actor either. Although he does a great depressed face. I mean, he's really good at looking unhappy. A lot of stand-ups are. It's true. There are a lot of stand-up comedians suffer from depression. Yeah. Well, some of them it's obvious, Richard Lewis. Some of them it's not.
Yeah. But again, I think they both do a really good job. It's just I think he's right. I think her performance is more nuanced, and she allows the character to reflect the aging more realistically than Billy does.
Well, visually, though, we have some problems, because when they first get together, my first note was, Billy Crystal with hair. I don't know if he ever looked like that. Maybe he did. But I'm sitting there going, how old are you supposed to be?
Yeah.
And apparently it's like, I think he's supposed to be 21 in the first film. Or the beginning of the film.
Yeah, because it's clear they both just graduated from the University of Chicago.
And I could buy her. And to be fair, I don't know their ages when they made this film. I could buy her being 21, 22. Sure. She's wearing makeup in a way that says, you don't really understand this yet, right? Which, of course, was not Meg Ryan's choice. It's fine, because that's what she's supposed to look a little naive and supposed to look a little innocent. But I'm sitting there going, these two people really aren't that close in age, are they?
Obviously, they're supposed to be, although to be fair, Billy Crystal is one of those people who I think was born looking like he was 40.
Yeah.
And he has looked that way for a very long time. I mean, he looked middle-aged when he was on Saturday Night Live, and I think when he was on Saturday Night Live, he was like 20, maybe.
Yeah. But of course, then his hairline recedes further and further throughout the film, and he actually looks like he ages. Meg Ryan just looks like she changed her hair.
Yeah, a little bit.
I honestly, she has the kind of face that it's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, you could put a wrinkle on, but it's just going to get absorbed. Like, I think she repels wrinkles.
Yeah, Meg Ryan, even now, has aged remarkably.
Yeah, apparently there's issues with that. But she's very pretty. She's very bouncy. She's very energetic. And I totally believe that character orders her food that way.
Yeah, you can see that. And I've known people like that who order like that. It's like, I want the dressing on the side, and I want this substitution. And if you don't have this substitution, don't bring me this instead.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, so if we don't have that, no pie? No, I want high, just don't heat it.
Yep.
It's like, okay, whatever. I like the fact that none of the waitstaff do more than give her a "you must be kidding" look. Like, nobody actually starts swearing or throwing things.
Because she's not the first person like that they've run into.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah.
And I'm usually at a table with people that have to order things differently. My partner has to order things very, very differently. And so I usually go, and for good reasons, allergies and food
Yeah, this
issues.
is not just because they're picky. This is for health reasons. This is dietary restrictions. This is not being a control freak.
No. I try to go last just so they're sitting there going, okay, now what do you want? It's like, I just want the number 3. It's fine. I'll have it the way it's written.
Yeah, you're the low maintenance one. Okay.
Oh boy, that's a change. I used to be the big picky Like, I wasn't quite as bad as Sally in this film, but like, if there was going to be peanut butter and jelly, it better not be on the same piece of bread. It better not be in the same sandwich, because we don't know. No, jelly sandwich, peanut butter sandwich, thank you very much.
Okay.
And to this day, I do not put jelly on my peanut butter. I eat it plain, thank you. No. Because you can't get the nuance of the peanut. Never mind.
We believe that Mike can be helped. Please, won't you help support him for just 16 cents a day?
Won't you help Mike into this nice trash compactor?
Yes. For just 16 cents a day, in less than a year, I'll be able to save up for a really good lead pipe to beat him with.
Right.
If you donate now, we'll engrave your name on the pipe, and therefore it will be embossed, reversed on his skin when I hit him.
I think I'd like to beam Mr. Spock into a wall. So we start off and they're in the car, and it's an interesting way to start this film, which is a rom-com, because we get Meg Ryan, who is generally innocent and cute and perky, and we get Billy Crystal, who is funny, but he's also kind of a jerk.
Yeah. And the thing is, he is also a type. Yeah. Because I remember people in college like that. Oh, I have a dark side. I'm like edgy, and I think about death. I'm sorry. He would if this film had been done about 10, 15 years later, he'd be talking about Marilyn Manson and The Cure. And...
The thing is that he's a very interesting character the way he's written, because he's supposed to be one of the protagonists. I mean, his name is in the title of the film. And he is funny. Like, I do laugh. And he's a jerk because he's very negative. But I also tended to find that he was kind of right.
He's clearly he's the more realistic of the two. He's sort of more plugged into the world. Meg Ryan is one of those people who has, and it goes along with the way she orders food. Yeah. She has a view of the way the world is supposed to be. And by God, she will bend it to fit that mold.
Yeah.
Whereas Billy Crystal is much more, the world is the way it is. It's stupid, and I'm not even going to try.
And, he's the one who brings up the men and women can't be friends thing.
It's an interesting point. I mean, you said you don't agree with that, because he says men and women, as he put very simply, men and women can't be friends because of the sex thing.
Yeah. Now, I think that they can be. I'm more of like the Billy Crystal side of it as opposed to the Harry side of it. So he says, I'm a bit more optimistic. Do I think that in general the thought has occurred? Probably. Like, at some point, I think it may have entered the equation in most, but not all, cases. Like, he even says, like, they're talking about it, it's like, well, what if she's unattractive? He's like, oh yeah, but they still want to. And it's like...
Well, that I don't agree with.
I think it depends on the guy. I think in a lot of cases it probably could.
It might. There are guys like that. That is true. Yeah. I think it is possible. I think the sex thing is a factor.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as dominating as he seems to think it is.
I think it also depends on the age.
Yeah, that's
like if
true.
it's a younger guy, maybe not so much. I don't know. I in a way, I can't speak to this because I have women friends, but there's never been any interest for sex. So, it's a totally different thing. Gay best friend. Now, guy friends. I can have guy friends that I don't have any interest in, and they're
good.
So I guess, well, yeah, you are one of them. But
yes, we're not going to talk into how much that hurts my feelings, but I'm not cute enough for Mike, apparently.
Yeah, that's true. That's the reason. It's just your appalling taste in films that I can't. Oh, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't go pointing any fingers there, Stinky.
You mean Hudson Hawk. That's what you mean.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. And then, sure, Harry's outlook is, I would say, you're right. It's leaning more towards realistic. And, we do get some of the things he brings up. It's like, yeah, I kind of actually side with him. But then later on, we see one of them. So, yeah, Sally is generally able to meld the world the way she wants it to be with everything on the side.
Yeah.
And even when she breaks up with her longtime boyfriend, who was played, interestingly, by the son of Gerald Ford, but okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Well, you might have noticed how dull I'm just kidding.
Well, he didn't walk into anything, so I couldn't tell. I'm sorry, that's so unfair. He only did that like twice.
He had like one accident.
No, he had two. He like fell down some steps, and I think he swam into the end of a swimming pool.
Oh, well,
and
he
I think that was it.
Accidentally became president because...
Yeah, well, yeah. He wasn't expecting to.
I kind of remember at that time it was literally a case of, oh, wait, who's next in line? Does anybody know?
Some guy named, I don't know, Edsel, Chrysler, what the hell?
Ford was sitting quietly in the corner going, oh. Anyway, so yeah, when she breaks up with her boyfriend, Harry is literally like, well, certainly you must be upset about this. And she's like, no, I'm over him. And she's like, you never get upset about anything. It's like, he's off doing his thing. I'm better off. It's fine. And then later we find out that no, she's not. That what happens is, what it takes is finding out that her boyfriend is actually going to get married to somebody else. And that's when reality, it's like, oh, somebody served her a salad with the oil and vinegar on the salad, and that's the last salad in the restaurant, and that she has to actually deal with it.
Well, part of it is, and I think they both have points about this. Harry is too much a creature of his feeling. She says, you can't just have a feeling and have it pop out of your mouth, whereas she denies a lot of her own feelings. Yeah. They're both sort of the opposite ends of the spectrum, neither of which is particularly healthy.
No.
Because Harry just wallows in his depression, and he does kind of have his head up his ass about it. And I have to say, when she calls him out on that, when the whole thing with the wagon wheel coffee table.
Yeah.
I liked that scene. I liked the way they play it in that they don't... I thought, oh, God, they're going to storm off. He's going to say something stupid. And what he says, are you done? Can I say something? And what he says is, I'm sorry. He says, you're right. I'm sorry. I was being a jerk.
I thought you liked it.
I was being nice.
Now, I don't think it was honestly the most hideous thing in the world.
Not.
But it's not.
We've both seen uglier tables, but come on.
Yeah.
I have to say part of it is I have never understood the glass top coffee table anyway.
I mean, if you want something that's really just going to show every last speck of dirt
seriously, or that you're afraid it'll shatter or crack.
And before anybody writes in, yes, we do know the ramifications of a glass coffee table, and no, we are not going to discuss them or even infer that we know anything more about it. Yeah, or imply. That's right, imply. I always get
but that actually brings up the other major couple in this movie. I mean, Harry and Sally are the major ones, but the other two, and I honestly can never remember their names. It's Jess and it's Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby.
Yeah, I can't remember her name either.
I can't remember her. Anne, I think maybe?
No, I don't remember. I could look it up, but I'm not going to.
Well,
I'll check. He'll clickety-clack. But, yeah, I like them.
Oh, Marie.
I mean, Bruno Kirby.
Marie. It's Marie and Jess. Marie, okay. Yeah. Bruno Kirby, first of all, this is an interesting part for him because he's usually either kind of the weaselly guy or the menacing guy. because he does he's been like the minor part in a lot of gangster movies.
Okay.
And it's not his greatest role to me still is Lieutenant Steve from Good Morning Vietnam.
Oh.
Which anyway, that's worth a show in itself. But he's just this sort of, ordinary New York schlub.
Mm-hmm.
And
I wouldn't even say that. I wouldn't even put him into that category. I think he's just sort of an average guy.
Yeah. And Carrie Fisher, who the running gag is she's been involved with a married man for most of the movie.
Yeah.
And he's never going to leave her. Nobody thought he would.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
You're right. You're right.
I actually really like Carrie Fisher here because we get to see her do something. Because she was basically wasted in a lot of the Star Wars films. They didn't give her a lot to do. I do like when she gets to be feisty, I like her.
Yeah.
But like the whole bikini thing was just so disgusting and just unnecessary and just ugh. And here she's not like that character at all, so we actually get to see her do some acting, and it's cool because she can, and I like her character.
Yeah.
And there's of course a scene where Billy Crystal, or Harry's best friend, Jess, and is not with anybody, and Sally's best friend Marie is with the married guy, but she still can't convince herself that he's not going to leave her wife. He's not, and they're like, maybe I can fix Marie up with Harry, and then we can fix Jess up with Sally. Because at this point, Harry and Sally have decided we're just friends, that's it, and they enjoy each other's company. And it's a great scene because they go to dinner, and the couples, as they want them, do not click at all.
Nope, there is like nothing, no chemistry.
No.
And it's very believable. It's like, wow, yeah, sometimes it's uncomfortable to watch because we've all had dates like this.
I guess most people have.
Yeah. Oh.
I haven't, but...
I have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, if you took me to a nicer place, that wouldn't have happened.
Oh, you get so picky. Never want to go to anyway.
Yeah.
But
and it's fun because not only do they not click, but suddenly Marie just sort of quotes something out of nowhere, and Jess is like, I wrote that. And she's like, you did not. He's like, yeah, I did. I'm a journalist. I wrote for this. What magazine did you read it from? She says it. And he's like, yeah. And she says, well, how about this? And he's like, yeah, I wrote that too. And they start talking, and Harry and Sally look at each other like, whatever. But then they leave the restaurant, and separately, Sally's talking to Marie, and it's like, look, can you not make a big deal? Like, if you guys hit it off, great. But just because Harry's still kind of hurting, and don't do anything. She's like, okay, no problem. And Harry says the same thing to Jess. Hey, if you guys want to get together, just right now, Sally's going through some stuff. Her ex-boyfriend's getting married, blah blah blah. Then they come back together, and Jess just says, hey, I'm tired of walking, you want to get a cab? And she says, sure. And they literally grab a cab, leap off, and that's it.
Yep. And then the next some scene not that far along, they're getting married, or they're at least moving in together.
Yeah, and I will admit I didn't remember this one because I had seen it before too, and I wasn't sure if they were going to stay together or not, because there's a scene with with the wagon wheel table, and it's like, oh, this is the beginning of the end, but that's not actually what happens. But it's at a point in the film, because initially, as we've mentioned, Harry has said to Sally, men and women can't be friends, just friends, because there's always this problem with sex. And they have run into each other over the years a number of times. The first time, Harry does not immediately recognize Sally, and then the second time they recognize each other, and she's always sort of rolling her eyes. It's like, oh my god, it's this guy spouting that really annoying, downy nonsense. But eventually, Harry has gotten married and then divorced. He's still pining for his ex-wife. She meets him, and they actually start getting along a little bit better, and they finally decide, you know what, maybe we can be friends. And this is a very interesting part of the film, because... And I can totally see this being based on Rob Reiner and Billy Crystal, partially because one of them is Billy Crystal. But they just enjoy each other's company. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice.
And they work together, She sort of keeps things organized, and he keeps her from being a little too stiff, and she can make sure that he actually, remembers to do things. And
no, go ahead.
And the banter that they have, the fact that she finally, initially she doesn't think he's funny. You can tell. No. She just finds him annoying, but she gets into his clowning around.
Yeah.
It's the thing that strikes me, and I'm wondering if this is supposed to be a result of their friendship, because in a lot of ways her character starts out very uptight and very controlled. That whole fake orgasm sequence always struck me as out of character. Because she never struck me as... She doesn't come across as a person who would want to attract a lot of attention in a public place.
I will agree. I also got the idea that talking that candidly and bluntly about sex... Although, this might actually work well into the Herr Hauptwitz, his observations, because the character does mature, and maybe it's just a sign of her... maturity, that it's like, yeah, I'm not girly anymore. I'm not that uptight. Yeah, I still want my salad like that. But
I can see that.
Maybe that's what it is. And if that's the case, then I'm all for it too. It's also just funny.
It's funny as hell. It's probably Meg Ryan's funniest scene in the movie.
And apparently she had to do it over and over again for different camera angles, and obviously she nails it. And I also just love Billy Crystal just... like his slow, he's watching her, trying to figure out what's going on, and he's still chewing, and then he starts chewing slower, and then he stops chewing, and he starts looking around the restaurant and finally realizes what's going on, and he kind of gives that little quick half smile like, heh, I don't know.
Yeah.
And everyone's watching her, and it's hilarious. It's funny. It's just funny. And it's one of her only really big funny moments in the film. It's not that she's not funny or fun to watch.
No, but she's not laugh out loud funny for most of it. She's, she's much more understated, and this really is a big, funny moment, and it's her only one.
And also, quite honestly, it is a much needed bucket of water in the face of Harry.
Yeah.
It's like, women can do this, and they can do it very well, and you probably have.
And it is also, Harry comes across as he's the one who really understands relationships better. He's the one who understands women. His attitude toward women is a little disturbing in this, and he is very closed off in some ways. It's funny. He's both very willing to express his emotions, but only to a degree, only as they correspond to himself.
Well, and he's also only willing to express them to his male friends or Sally, because they've made this agreement that they're not going to have sex and they're not going to be that kind of friends or have a relationship. And, this is... and this does get to a point. My sister, one of our listeners, who is not named Hauptwitz, her name is Val, said when she found out we were doing this film, it's like, oh, that's a fun film, but it does have its problems. And I think two of the problems are based around the same thing, and that's stereotypes. So on the male side of things, we get a man who doesn't know how to deal with his emotions unless he's talking to his male friends singularly, because he's not going to talk about this in a group.
Yeah.
Or, eventually, thankfully, he's able to talk to Sally somewhat. But also the women in this film. There are scenes, and all they're doing, boy, would this film not pass the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
All they're doing is talking about how rabid they are to be married.
Right, or their relationships, but it's true. I don't think there are two women in this. I'm pretty sure this movie fails the Bechdel test, which is, do two women, named characters, talk for more than 30 seconds about something other than a man?
Right.
And no.
And it's almost, oh man! I mean, there's points in this film where they're talking, oh, is he married? And there's one, she literally, Marie's character there, Carrie Fisher, pulls out, and I'm going to have to explain this to people, she pulls out a Rolodex.
A Rolodex.
So before we could put all these things in a phone,
it's on paper. Just put it that it's cards.
Yeah. And what she does, they're talking about, guys. Well, what about so and so? Oh, he got married. When did that happen? Oh, about a month ago. She dog ears that card.
Yeah.
So it's like all the guys she knows, she has already categorized them as to marryable or not. And it's just that part kind of bothered me, because it's like, really, the women characters in this film have nothing better to talk about than the fact that they're not yet married and it needs to happen really, really soon. There's even a scene where Sally she's crying and she's like, 40 is coming. And it's like, yeah, not for 8 years. Yes, but it's there and it's coming and I'm not married. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that marriage can't be an important part in either a man or a woman's life.
But it's painful to see people who define themselves purely in that term. It's like, if I'm not married, I'm a failure.
And it's really painful because that's how all of the women are portrayed in this film. And we get the impression, it's like, I can't remember off the top of my head what Sally does, but she certainly seems successful at it. So does Marie, and so does the third friend whose name I don't remember. They all seem to be, because all of them live in pretty nice places in Manhattan.
Yeah. Yeah, they all have remarkably nice, large apartments in one of the most expensive cities in the world.
Now, to be fair, we're talking 80s New York, which is not at all 2020s New York. But
it was still expensive. It has never, I mean, it's been 100 years since it was cheap to live in New York.
You'd find a lot of places in the 70s where the 70s was, and of course the early 80s, that's when they went bankrupt. But it wasn't cheap, but it was livable. Now forget it. Like all these people, and of course one of my notes is to be rich and white in New York City, because this film. Let's go ahead and say it. This film is about as white as it gets. I think there's a black character. She's a waitress.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody is very, very white. Yeah. But of course, the cast of characters is fairly small, also.
Right.
But New York, very white this season.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't that much snow, and what there was obviously fake.
Yeah.
So this actually brings me to one of my talking points. Not one of the usual ones, but it occurred to me watching this film. Max, do you think this film could be remade today? And if so, would it matter what the pairing of the two characters was?
What do you mean? What?
Well, I'm looking at this film, and it's like, could this film be made with two gay guys or two lesbians, or could it be made with two gender non-specific people, or would race matter?
I don't think so. I don't think race, gender, or sexual orientation would matter as long as the two characters had the potential to be lovers.
Right.
I mean, if you had like a gay man and a straight woman, I don't think it would work. It'd be a whole different movie. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't work as a movie, and we've seen this.
Right.
But it wouldn't work as this movie. I don't know if you could remake it. The whole idea of men and women being friends or not being able to be friends, I don't think that's as much of... I think we've seen that enough in other movies and in real life that it's possible. Yeah. I think that joke wouldn't hold up. There's also
it would have to mature, right? Mm-hmm. But...
And they also point out, let's face it, Harry's promiscuity, the number of women he sleeps with, that really doesn't age well. Even in 1989, which was basically when the AIDS crisis was really starting to crest.
Yes.
That's kind of problematic.
Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised.
But of course, AIDS never happened to straight white guys, so
right.
It's okay.
No, that's true. I mean, considering this movie would have been developed from probably around 1986 to 87, they didn't know. They thought that was true. They thought, oh no, it's just gay men, and it's just gay men in San Francisco.
Yeah, or New York. To be fair, New York was one of the epicenters.
True.
But it wasn't that they didn't understand. It's just that people only heard about it happening to people that they didn't have to care about, and that's how it was being portrayed in the news. But as was found out, it's like, no, it just happens with anybody who has sex with anybody. It could happen to anybody.
That's one of the things that kind of dates this movie.
Oh yeah. And it is interesting to see how social mores have changed somewhat since then when it comes to sex. Now, to be fair, we only see one side of it. We can sit there and go, well, yeah, he's a horn dog, but he's apparently able to find quite a lot of women who want to sleep with him. Yeah. So it's sad that it still has to be a thing where it's okay for the guy to have lots of sex, but it's not okay for the woman, because
the double standard has not gone away.
No, and it should have long ago. But I was watching this film, and it's just one of those things. It's like there's literally nothing in general in this film where you couldn't apply this to characters of vastly different backgrounds.
Sure.
And it would still work. And it's like, that's actually kind of nice. It makes the story a little bit more universal. And I don't know why I initially just came to mind, but it did. And I thought I'd see if you thought the same way, and it's kind of cool.
I think so. There's also some really good dialogue in here.
There's some great lines. We know about the scene in the restaurant. Everybody knows that one.
But even little things like when Carrie Fisher saying, when she finds out that Sally's broken up with her boyfriend, says, "Oh, but you had a date on national holidays." I was like, oh, God, she actually gets two of my favorite lines. That's one of them. The other one is when when they're arguing about the wagon wheel coffee table.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I have good taste. She goes, no, honey, everyone thinks they have good taste and a sense of humor. But statistically, that can't be right.
And you know what? I believe it about Bruno Kirby's character. I believe he does not have a good sense of humor. Although he delivers one of my favorite lines, which was, "You made a woman meow?"
He's so good at deadpan delivery like that. And again, was something he was really good at in Good Morning Vietnam. He can keep an absolutely straight face and drop lines like that.
My other favorite line in the film is they're playing, I think it's Pictionary, and poor Sally is trying to do the phrase that it's supposed to be a famous phrase, is baby talk, and Bruno Kirby's character is just fixated on the fact that it's a mouth, and he finally blurts out baby fish mouth, and at the end she just Sally, they run out of time and they don't get the points, and Sally just says baby talk, and he's like, that's a phrase, that's a famous phrase, and Billy Crystal comes back with baby fish mouth. That's a phrase that's sweeping the nation. Which I enjoyed.
I remember when the first time I saw that and she said that, and I was like, oh my God, she's right. Everyone does think that they have a sense of humor and good taste. And I'm sitting there going, do I have good taste? Do I just think I do? I was pretty sure about the sense of humor, but
I've got a personality too. Ted, you don't. Yes, Max, you have a sense of humor. At the very least, for putting up with me.
Yeah. But, yes, but obviously I have no taste because of putting up with you.
What's a knot between friends?
Why?
That's such a deeper. It's not.
That's a deeper. No one will. Anyway. There is some very dated stuff. I like when they're in sharper image. Remember sharper image?
So I had sharper image in my my notes because it's like the Rolodex. Let's explain what this is. So that was the one place you could walk in and buy a full-size replica of the alien from Aliens if you so wanted.
Yes, it was basically a toy store for yuppies. It was a toy store for people with too much money. Yeah. And I like he goes over to the karaoke machine and goes, look, a singing machine. Because he didn't know what karaoke meant.
Yeah, that wasn't. I mean, the name wasn't a thing yet. But
and I like when he's dancing and showing the white man's overbite. It's like, oh God, that's right.
I mean, say what you want, and I think there was some ad-libbing in here, and I know there was some ad-libbing when they're in the Met at the Egyptian exhibit, and he's saying, "Will you partake of my?"
That's right. More pepper in your paprikash.
Yeah, well, the when he says that, not only was that ad-libbed, but you see Meg Ryan laugh, and she looks off camera. She's actually looking at Rob Reiner, who just sits there and signals, "Go with it, go with it, go with it." And I would not be surprised to find out that Billy Crystal had some additions to the script, because
I would not be surprised.
It feels very Billy Crystal, and I got to say, as negative as his character comes off, he's funny. Billy Crystal's really funny in this film.
Yep.
And as I said, the most Billy Crystal. But
and then we have the point where they actually sleep together.
Yeah,
and that's really awkward, and it's very well done. It's really well handled. It's very believable. On the one hand, you're also sort of like, oh God, this is such a mistake because she's upset. She's very emotionally vulnerable. They really shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
And they both say it was a mistake, but clearly, and the looks on their faces in the afterglow, where she's got this like blissful smile.
She's got the Meg Ryan smile.
Yep, she's got the real Meg Ryan, the pure Meg Ryan, eyes closed, gums showing smile.
Yeah. And
he's just, I don't know how to describe it. He's the coyote who's realized his leg is caught in the trap.
I was thinking existential dread, but okay.
He's just real existential dread.
And it's interesting because they're both right for different reasons. So he's right because he's like, this is suddenly going to make a friendship that we both really enjoy really complicated. She's going to read a lot into it like it suddenly means anything when it doesn't. And she's thinking, hey, this is changing our relationship in a really cool way, and it obviously means something. And of course, they will be proven right, but not for a while. Yeah. And so we have to go through that awkward breakup period where they're, not friends anymore.
Yeah.
And, this, before we get too late here, this will bring us sort of towards some of the other talking points that we bring up. So, one of the ones we brought up for all of the films in the series, do we buy how they meet? Sure.
Sure, why not? It's artificial, but it's exactly the kind of artificial that you has in real life. It's like, you're going to, she's like, I think it's Billy Crystal's girlfriend at the time is Meg Ryan's friend, and says, look, you're driving to New York, why don't you take my boyfriend with you, and, you guys can share the drive. It's like, okay, perfectly believable. Do they have chemistry?
I think they do. And here's where I think things get interesting to me, is they have better chemistry as friends than they do as a couple.
Yeah, they have really good personality and intellectual chemistry. I don't know if they have some sexual chemistry, I think, at least on the screen, but it's not as strong as the rest of it.
No. And this, of course, leads to the other one, which is how do we feel about the ending with the characters' relationship coming to a close? Do we feel like, do we buy it? Do we say, oh, yeah, they live happily ever after?
Honestly, I'm enough of a sucker for a romantic ending that I like it. And I actually like the way he appears at the New Year's party and tells her he loves her and points out that the things he loves about her are also the things that drive him crazy.
Oh, you mean when he runs in with the boombox over his head and he's playing Peter Gabriel, that scene?
Pretty much.
Don't be a guy, be a man.
That's a great line.
Actually, I've never seen that film.
Maybe we should do that at some point. But
Lloyd Dobler, isn't that his name?
Lloyd Dobler, played by
Why
John
do I know
Hughes.
that?
I don't know.
I don't either.
And there's another movie with an amazing cast. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Because interestingly, at the end of the film, it's an improv scene. They're on the couch, and they're talking about it. Something I did not notice, but in the last scene of the film, I didn't put this in the trivia. She's not wearing a ring.
Oh.
Which is interesting. But she's going on and on about something, and he comes back with, she's right. Almost in a, I'm changing my mind because my wife wants me to change my mind kind of way.
Oh, I didn't get that. Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw that.
It's like usually you think, oh, Harry would now go into why she's not right. Because I think she talks about, it's all about the food thing, having things separate, and sometimes things can be great separate, and sometimes things can be great in different ways. And he says, yeah, she's right, basically. I like them so much as friends because they seem so much more like themselves. And once they become a couple, it feels like they're sanding some edges off in a way. I don't think they make a bad couple. I just like them better as friends. That's just my take.
I could see that. I think it might have been a bolder choice to keep them as friends.
Yeah, well, that's what they were going to do. And, director and screenwriter both said, yeah, this is how they should end up. And then, of course, the director ends up falling in love. And it's like, no, marriage. But apparently they're still married. Yeah, they're still married. So there you go.
That's nice. Good for Meathead. Yeah, what did you think about the whole device of the couples on the couch coming in documentary style throughout the movie?
I actually liked it. I really liked the people. I actually thought they might be real people. Apparently they were actors. I don't think they were well-known actors.
No, I'm sure they were just people they grabbed out of the central casting. But the stories were real.
Yeah, I liked it because it was hopeful. It's like, and you know there are people like this all over the place. I mean, I know people whose parents have been married for 50 years or whatever, 60 years. And they were just nice stories. It was nice. I can see why people would say, hey, this is kind of jarring a little bit. It's sort of taking us out of the film because it's like a totally different tone. Because in general, we're just watching a film and now it's like we're watching a documentary. But I liked it. What did you think?
I liked the individual pieces. I thought it was gimmicky and I thought it was unnecessary. And it also didn't reflect what was happening. I was thinking, are they going to... When I first saw it, I thought, are these going to be about couples who started out as friends and then ended up getting married? Mm-hmm. And none of them, not one, was like that. No. And not to mention there's a couple in there that are kind of like the guy saying, oh yeah, I saw this beautiful girl walked in and I said to my friend, that's the girl I'm going to marry.
Yeah.
Like, okay, really? So just based on the way she looked, you believed you were going to spend the rest of your life with her. That's...
It happens. And it was a very common thing in older films.
Yeah.
So, and one of them was the high school sweetheart, but, they didn't.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, they were very sweet, and I loved, I'm sorry, the old couple who keep talking over each other.
That was the most realistic
most realistic, and yes, I will say it, they were this adorable old Jewish couple, and I know it because, I lived on Delancey Street. The accent, where they lived, what they did, and they were so cute. They was like, okay, I've seen that in my own family. The two who talk over each other, but it works. You can still understand both of them because they have each other's rhythm down so pat.
Not entirely unlike a certain Jewish couple that we both know because we're both a part of one. Except that we're not a couple and I'm not Jewish.
Shut up.
But yet... they were fun.
Yeah.
I could see why, you thought it was gimmicky, and it kind of was.
But it still is very nice. For me, it's like the ending. It's like, I don't know if it really works, but I like it.
Yeah. Any other notes before we get to that all-important wrap-up where we decide, hey, good points, bad points, does this still make a film that you'd want to watch?
Nope, nothing. Well, nope, let's get there.
All right, and... the roundup. We're there.
So, Max, sorry, I missed it. Yes.
Get on again.
Yeah.
So you'd seen it when it came out.
Have
you seen it many times since it came out?
I've seen it several times. I don't know about many, but I've seen it at least 3 or 4 times since it came out.
So you hate it?
Oh, yeah.
It's been gathering hate.
I hate watch it. I watch it purely when I want to make myself suffer. No, I like this movie a lot. I think this movie is very cute. Yeah. I think it's adorable. I think it's the Meg Ryan of movies. It's just you want to tweak its cheek.
Yeah. She's very Meg Ryan-y. She did that smile. I forget, there was somebody on Saturday Night Live who used to do an impersonation of her, and they would do that smile, and it was instantly Meg Ryan, and then she does this in the film. It's like, that's right.
I'm not sure who, but I know what you mean. Yeah. I think this is one of my favorite Meg Ryan movies, if not my favorite, just because she is very sweet in it, and she's also, she's not just sweet. She's got an edge to her. She's got... she does change, and she evolves. The character evolves. I think more so than Billy Crystal's character does. I think this is a lot of fun. It's got the writing is wonderful. The dialogue is so much fun. I like the secondary couple. I like Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby. I think they're great together. Mm-hmm. And I think they're great separately. I think they're great in their supporting roles as best friends, and then I think they're great as a couple. And I liked it. Yeah. And I think Meathead does a very nice job directing it.
There's now 2 presents on your doorstep.
What about you? Did you see it when it came out?
No, I did not. Okay. I'm generally not a rom-com kind of guy. 1989, I'm sure I was seeing... Actually, I think I looked it up, and I think it's the same year that Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and... maybe T2 or something like that came out. So I would have been more likely to see films like that.
More explodey things.
That's right. If it doesn't explode, it's not for men. I saw it somewhere on video in the 90s. Don't remember. I don't remember who I saw it with. And I remember liking it at the time, and I haven't seen it since. It has got its little problems. Again, I think that both sexes, more predominantly the women, but the men and the women in this film are fairly stereotypical. With the women, I think it's really to a detrimental point because it's like, I think women have more important things to think about than, I'm not married yet! And again, if that's your thing, cool, but it's like, that's all we see. Yeah. If it had been one character or 2, maybe, but it's like that. It suggests that all women are just worried about when they get married. And they have far more interesting things they can and do. Do.
What is it that you do?
That present on your doorstep. That being said, if you take its time and that bit into consideration, it's fun. Billy Crystal, for the most part, is the funnier part of the two, but they both have their moments. Other characters have their moments. Baby Fishmouth kills me. I'd forgotten all about it. It's light. It doesn't get too serious. It could have, but it doesn't. If you're looking for rom-com, it's kind of the rom-commiest that we've looked at so far.
A rom-communist, if you will.
No, I won't. And I won't do it this week, and I won't do it next week. But before we get there, we, of course, have to take care of our business because, again, we had a suggestion from one of our listeners, and you could be one of them, that said, guys, do the news or the business at the end of the show. So I will now do the business at the end of the show.
Because this is the point when everyone turns off the podcast.
Well, they figure if you've got this far, maybe you'll care about another one. If you care about another one, you can find all of our episodes, and they are hermetically sealed for your convenience and your safety.
Yeah, sealed in a mayonnaise jar underneath Funkin' Wagnall's porch.
Hey, there's holes in the lid and a stick. You can find them on our stick, which can be found at www.maxmikemovies.com. You can find us on the podcast app of your choice. You can find us on social media, including things such as Facebook and not Instagram. We
Twitter.
Don't do that one. Spotify, Twitter. I always forget Twitter because it's the one I don't have.
Yeah.
And besides leaving comments on the website under each specific episode, you can, of course, contact us. And hey, as you've heard, you might get on the show because we used your comment or your suggestion or whatever. Email us directly at us. That's simply us@maxmikemovies.com. But speaking of awkward sex, what are we doing next week?
Same thing we do every week, Pinky. We're going to. This is a movie that Mike suggested that I have never actually seen. It's called Down with Love.
Is it not Up with Love?
I think it's Down with Love. Honestly, I'm not sure. It's Ewan McGregor and Renee Zellweger. It's kind of a throwback to the sort of Doris Day comedies of the 60s.
Yes.
And up or down, we are either going to be down with love, Holmes, or we'll be up with love all night long. I don't know.
Just think of it this way. Be up with Mike and down with Max.
Yeah.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.